Hello, historians. Today we are going to start our new unit on ancient India by talking about the geography of the Indus River Valley civilization. So, one of the first civilizations in the world developed in the valley of the Indus River in Asia. It occupied both sides of what is now the border between Pakistan and India. The Indus Valley civilization lasted from about 2500 BCE to about 1700 BCE. The Indus River Valley is located near the border of modern day Pakistan and northwest India. Although it begins in the Himalayan mountains, it also flows through the Hindu Kush mountains before making its way to the plains of Pakistan and emptying into the Arabian Sea. The nutrient rich silt travels down this river and onto the plains of the Indus River Valley, creating fertile farmland for the people who settled there. A river valley civilization is a civilization that started alongside a river and that uses the river to sustain life. So, this is just like some previous civilizations we've talked about, namely Mesopotamia and Egypt. Those are two big civilizations that started along rivers. The Indus Valley Civilization was a cultural and political entity which flourished in the northern region of the Indian subcontinent between 7000 and 600 BCE. Its modern name derives from its location in the valley of the Indus River, but it is also commonly referred to as the Saravasti civilization and the Harappan civilization. None of these names derive from any ancient texts because, although scholars generally believe that the people of this civilization developed a writing system known as Indus script or Harappan script, it has not yet been deciphered. So we know what it is, we just can't read it. The two best known excavated cities of this culture are Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro, located in modern day Pakistan, both of which are thought to have once had populations of between 40,000 to 50,000 people, which is stunning when one realizes that most ancient cities had on average around 10,000 people living in them. The total population of the civilization is thought to have been upward of 5 million, and its territory stretched over 900 miles along the banks of the Indus River and then in all directions outward. Indus Valley civilization sites have been found near the border of Nepal, in Afghanistan, on the coast of India, around Delhi, just to name a few locations. So, the Indian subcontinent. The Indus Valley is located in the region known as South Asia or the Indian subcontinent. So, we take the big continent, which is Asia, and we break it down into a smaller subcontinent. So, India is known as a subcontinent. The Indian subcontinent is a huge peninsula extending into the Indian Ocean. Towering, snow covered mountain ranges mark the northern border of the subcontinent, including the Hindu Kush and the Himalayas. These mountains limited contact with other lands, leaving India's culture to develop on its own for the most part. So, on page 2 of your or your guided notes, I want you to write a brief description about each feature of the Indian subcontinent. In the rating box, you're then going to rate the feature on a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being the most unsuitable for I'm really struggling today, y'all. 1 being the most unsuitable for settlement, and 5 being very suitable for settlement. So, the first thing on the Indian subcontinent we're going to talk about is the Himalayas. The Himalayas are the tallest mountain range in the world. It is home to Mount Everest, which, at 29,029 feet, is the tallest peak on Earth. The Himalayas separate the Indian subcontinent from the rest of Asia. The glaciers and snowmelt that flow from this mountain range supply fresh water to important rivers in this region, including the Ganges, Indus, and Brahmaputra. These rivers make agriculture and irrigation possible for the people who settled in the plains and valleys. The Himalayas also provide the people with timber, animal products, minerals, and stone. The Himalayas are located where two tectonic plates are pushing together at a convergent plate boundary. The shifting of these tectonic plates is what created the mountains. However, deadly earthquakes and landslides are also a common occurrence as a result of these plates. Then we get to the Hindu Kush. So the Hindu Kush mountain range runs through modern day Afghanistan and creates a border that separates Afghanistan from the Indus River Valley. The Hindu Kush stretch as high as 5 miles up and are covered in snow and ice, making much of this area difficult for settlement. However, snowmelt from the Hindu Kush has helped feed the Indus River, providing a sustainable fresh water source for the people settled in the Indus Valley. In addition to providing fresh water, these mountains also provided wood, animals, minerals, and stone to people in the Indus Valley. The Hindu Kush Mountains provide a barrier to protect and isolate the people living in the Indus Valley. However, there is a 30-mile wide pass through the mountains known as the Khyber Pass. Historically, it is believed that people migrated through the Khyber Pass to settle in the Indus River Valley. The Khyber Pass was also used by traders and invaders to access the region. The Sar Desert is a large, dry region in the northern part of the subcontinent, forming a border between India and Pakistan. It is also called the Great Indian Desert. Large sand dunes dot the landscape of this desert, and high winds shift the dunes, making movement through the desert extremely difficult. A few drought resistant trees and shrubs can be found here, along with smaller animals and birds. The soil struggles to support vegetation, which means plants, due to its lack of minerals and nutrients, so the people who live here tend to lead a nomadic lifestyle. Beginning in the Himalayas and flowing through northern India and down into the Bay of Bengal, the Ganges River is seen as a life source to the people who settled here. The river collects silt that is rich in minerals as it flows from the Himalayas. The Ganges, also called the Ganga by the people living in this region, continues its journey into the plains of India where it deposits the silt, creating excellent farmland. As a result, many cities and towns sprang up along the banks of the Ganges River. The flow and the water level of the river is dependent on the season. During the winter months, the river sees a decline in the flow of water. However, during the rainy season from July through September, the monsoon winds bring heavy rains that increase the flow of the river and cause the water to flood onto the banks. Flooding from the monsoon rains has destroyed homes and washed away crops. The Himalayan mountains is also home to the Brahmaputra River. This river flows through the northern part of the Indian subcontinent before eventually meeting up with the Ganges River. The Brahmaputra River is affected by monsoons, which are strong winds that bring heavy rains for part of the year and dry air with little moisture for the other half of the year. These monsoons feed the river and help farmers to irrigate their fields. However, the monsoons also cause serious flooding and wash away villages and farmland. When the flooding ends, rich silt is left behind, allowing for crop production in the plains and valleys. Due to its location in the interior of the subcontinent, the Brahmaputra River has been used as a waterway for trade and travel for people living inland. Then we get to the eastern and western Ghats. Ghats, two mountain ranges forming the eastern and western edges, respectively, of the Deccan Plateau of peninsular India. The two ranges run roughly parallel to the Bay of Bengal and the Arabian Sea coasts, respectively, from which they are separated by strips of fairly level coastland. In Hindi, Ghat means river landing stairs or mountain pass. The Deccan Plateau is located between the eastern and western Ghats mountain range in India. It is shaped like an upside down triangle in central and southern India and is characterized by a varied landscape. The Deccan Plateau was formed as a result of lava flow from volcanic activity. As the lava hardened into rock, more layers continued to be added, creating the raised plateau. This plateau has a dry climate, making agriculture, and therefore human settlement, difficult. However, people have been able to adapt to this location. The volcanic soil makes cotton production possible, and other grains such as wheat are able to grow here. And then we are getting back to our notes on the third page. So, as we heard when talking about one of the other geographic features, a defining feature of life in the Indian subcontinent is the monsoons, or the seasonal wind that bring hot, dry air in the winter and heavy rain in the summer. Each year, people welcome the rains that are desperately needed to water the crops. If the rains are late, famine and starvation may occur. However, if the rains are too heavy, rushing rivers can unleash deadly floods. Farming was important to the Indus Valley civilization. People ran irrigation canals from the rivers to the fields. The Indus people were among the first to grow cotton and use it to make cloth. They also might have been the first people to raise chickens. Indus merchants carved stones called seals to mark their goods. Many seals showed pictures of animals and a form of writing. These seals have been found in Mesopotamia, which is now in Iraq, and that means the two regions might have traded with each other. So we get to Mohenjo-Daro, which is one of the cities. Mohenjo-Daro was situated near the Indus River. Artificial barriers around the city protected it from the river. The city was laid out with great precision into something like a dozen blocks or islands. Each island was about 1,260 feet from north to south and 700 feet from east to west. The remains of a citadel, which is a fortress typically on high ground protecting or dominating a city, have been found at the site. The citadel was built to a height of around 20 to 40 feet with mud and mud brick. Square towers of baked brick fortified the structure. Buildings on the citadel included an elaborate bank or tank surrounded by a veranda, which is a roofed platform, a large residential structure, a huge granary, which is a storehouse for grains, and at least two halls of assembly. The citadel was the religious and ceremonial headquarters of Mohenjo-Daro. Houses with courtyards lay in the town below the citadel. Most houses had small bathrooms and, like the streets, were well provided with drains and sanitation. They had brick stairs, indicating at least an upper story or a flat roof. The walls were originally plastered with mud. And here is a map of what people think Mohenjo-Daro would have looked like. We can see that these are the houses with the verandas they were talking about. And here, up here on the hill, is the citadel, which you can see the great baths, the gates, everything that we talked about on the previous slide. And we can see as well those barriers that prevented them from getting flooded by the river. And then the second city we're going to talk about is Harappa. So the village of Harappa stands on an extensive series of mounds in which excavation sites in 1921 have disclosed the remains of a large city of the Indus civilization in size second only to Mohenjo-Daro, which lies about 400 miles to the southwest. The excavations revealed that Harappa was similar in plan to Mohenjo-Daro, with a citadel resting on a raised area in the western flank of the town and a grid plan layout of workers' quarters, which were houses, on the eastern flank. Between the citadel and the Ravi River, there existed barrack-like blocks of workers' quarters, along with a series of circular brick floors that were used for pounding grain, and two rows of ventilated granary buildings, 12 in all, arranged around a podium. The total floor space in the granaries was more than 9,000 square feet. That means this civilization could store a lot of grain, which means that they had an amazing staying power because if you have a food surplus, you can start building up your population. The entire layout, dominated by the citadel as it was, suggests a close government control of the food supplies within convenient closeness to the river highway of the Ravi. However, no intelligible remains survive of the buildings, of the citadel, or of the main body of the town itself. And then finally, we'll talk about the decline of the Indus Valley civilization because the Indus Valley did not stick around for the entire time of ancient India. It was just the first civilization in India. And so the Indus Valley civilization began to decline around 1800 BCE. Archaeological evidence indicates that trade with Mesopotamia, located largely in modern Iraq, seemed to have ended. The advanced drainage systems and baths of the great cities were built over or blocked. Writing began to disappear, and the standardized weights and measures used for trade and taxation fell out of use. All right, here are my sources. You are going to go ahead and complete the map.